In this video, our SAP Analytics Cloud product experts will demonstrate the main features of our new release. Feel free to jump straight to the features you're interested in by using the timestamps in the description below. Let's dive in and hear from our SAP Analytics Cloud product experts.
Hi, my name is Ashok Kumar. I am with SAP Analytics Cloud Product Management Team. We have improved the user experience of Content Network while creating a package. Now you can choose the objects while creating a package without the dependencies as well. Let's look at a demo. So this is the screen where you choose the objects while creating the package. And let's say you're choosing an object. Let's say I want to choose this particular story. By default, when you choose a story, the story and with the dependencies are selected as an object within the package. Now you have an option not to choose the dependencies by pressing Ctrl or a command. I just press the Control key and choose a story. Here you see only the story will be selected, not its dependencies. This enhancement would help you to do delta transport between the tenants, or you want to just transport only the items what you have changed during the further upgrades into your production tenants. Thank you. Hi, my name is Ashok Kumar. I am with SAP Analytics Cloud Product Management Team. Right now, you can download or upload a package from the Content Network storage as a .package file. And there are a lot of advantages using these features. Mainly, Content Network comes with a 300 MB space. Right, the storage is provided for a transport reasons. Often, user have to clean up their old transport to make a space for the new transport. With this enhancement, users can archive their old package by downloading to a .package file and store into the external file system and or an external version control system. There are other advantages, mainly if you want to transport the content between the restricted tenants. Few customers have their tenants in the mixed landscape. Let's say they have a development tenant in the non-EU access tenants and the production tenant in the EU access tenant, right? Non-EU access tenant cannot access the EU access tenants. That's the reason we cannot share the package directly via the Content Network share options. During these scenarios, users can download the package to a .package file and upload them into their restricted tenants, right? It could be for any restricted tenants, for example. And there are other advantages, mainly in terms of being an alternative for .tgc file. As you know, the .tgc file is a really old way of doing a transport. There are a lot of enhancement is being done in Content Network. A lot of customers have moved to the Content Network way of transporting the content, and eventually we have a plans to deprecate .tgc file around Q2 2023. So download and upload of the package is a go-to alternative for the users who are still using .tgc file. Let's look at a quick demo. So I could just choose any of my package, and there is a download option available in the download menu, right? As soon as you click on the download, the job is submitted as a background job. Once the package is ready for download, there will be a notification that would be shown up in your screen, and after the notification, you could see the package is getting downloaded into your browser download location. This feature is not enabled by default. User can decide to enable this functionality by going to System Administration. Under the administration, you have special settings mainly related to allowing users to download and upload of the content network package, and this is disabled by default, and users can enable it, right? Mainly for the customers who do not want their content to be transported out of their tenant, for such policies, you could keep this setting switched off. Thank you. Hi, my name is Ashok. I am part of the SAP Analytics Cloud product management team. Now you could transfer the private content into the predefined public folder in the destination. Right? So most of the cases, user develop the artifacts, stories and dashboards and all the objects in the development tenant and use the content network to transport from development to test or a production, right? And though it is uncommon to move the content from production back to development, in self-service use cases, we often see end users create the dashboards, and over a period of time, they need the support of IT to enhance with the further advanced functionalities, right? So during these scenarios, it is required to transport the content from development back to production. Now, with these enhancements, you could include the objects which is part of the user's private folders into the content network package and transport them back into your production tenant. Please note that while importing the content in the production tenant, the content would be imported in public and content network folder, where you could further organize the content, move to the wherever required location and secure the content. Let's see a quick demo. This is a screen where you create a package. So while creating the package, now you could see all the users' private contents are categorized under users group, and you could include any of the users folders or any of the users files created in their my files locations, which we call as a personal locations, as part of the package. And let's say you want to include a particular story, and that particular story which is stored in the user's private locations or can be included as part of the package. And for example, there could be a model which is dependent on a public model. In this case, system also identifies the dependencies between the stories what is stored in the private folders and the model which is stored in the public folders, and you could have both included as part of the same package during the transport. Right? And please note, while importing these content in the destination tenant, right? So these contents, these private contents are downloaded in the predefined locations in the called public content network folders, where you have to further organize and secure the content based on your project needs. Thanks.
Hello everyone, my name is Bhavna Arya and today I am here to present exciting updates on Works Payment.
Let's take a look at the cross-space consumption feature. This feature will bring in capabilities for users with access to create and consume content freely between workspaces.
The key benefit of this change is that users can now create content freely with resources from any of the workspaces that they have access to, and then worry about creation and save locations later. So let me demo this to show you what I mean by cross-space consumption. The first key area that has changed right now is that users can now directly create content resources and then worry about save locations later. The second area that I wish to highlight over here is that I can pull in resources from any of the workspaces.
So now I'm creating the story in the demo workspace. I'm going to be pulling in the data set from another workspace that I have access to.
Selecting an existing model, and I can easily pull in a data set that belongs to another workspace. So I belong to two workspaces here, demo and planning, and I can pull in data from planning workspace into my demo workspace. And the last key area that has changed over here is that I can save my file in any location. So now I'm not restricted to saving it within the same workspace. I can save it in my files or any other workspace that I have access to. So all these improvements ensure that the users have ease of cross-space consumption.
we bring in the capability for non-admins to move and copy content freely with any workspace they have access to, or even the My File section. Earlier, only admins had the ability to move and copy content in and around workspaces. I'm logged in as a non-admin user, and I have two workspaces, Demo Team and Planning Team, and select one of the folders and move it to another workspace, and let me move it to the Demo Team. I can also copy folders by selecting the folder and clicking on the Copy to icon. These same steps can be used to move or copy content between two different workspaces or between workspaces and My Files.
As one more useful feature is the request access feature of workspace content. Users can now see the workspace resources on the catalog board and request access to view it. Admins can increase discovery of content within the teams with this feature. This is a resource that belongs to a workspace called Planning Workspace. As I'm logged in as a user who belongs to this workspace, I can now request access to it. The request is sent with a default message that can also be customized to the system admin. The system admins can navigate to the file request section to approve or deny it. This ensures security, as members of the workspace would only see the content and have the option to request access for it. As part of workspace enhancements, we have one more interesting feature. Now, we can assign teams as workspace admins.
We have added the ability to see the team description in the team assignment area of Workspace Management. This is useful as it will provide more insight into the different types of teams working in the workspace.
Let me demo this. Let's navigate to the Workspace Management section, choose a workspace of your choice, and then switch to the Workspace Admin tab. And here,
Click on the plus icon to add a new theme, and then from the drop-down, choose a theme of your choice. And now the team is added as an workspace admin. You can also see the team description and the team member information.
this is a very useful feature to manage workspaces and make sure that in case of unavailability of resources, the workspace can be efficiently managed.
Thank you for listening in.
Hello everyone, I have an exciting update on Analytics Catalog today. With this update, we increase the capability for BI admins to customize and control the catalog system experience for users on the tenant. This is a very useful feature as it allows discovery via recommendations and gives admins more control on user experience settings. Let me show a demo of this. I'm logged into my tenant as a BI admin, and as I navigate to the Catalog tab, there are a few noticeable changes. First, the recommended resources are pinned on top of my catalog board. Second, the filters are expanded by default to show the customized filter selections. Here, a default sorting selection of most viewed order is put in place. All these customizations can be done through the Catalog tab in the Administration panel. Click on the Catalog tab and we see a lot of settings. The default sort order can be set. As I scroll to the translation section, you can see a drop down to choose any of the source language of your choice. Again, I stick with English. Let's make a few more customizations. In the content filters section, I wish to add 2 more filters and hit save. To see the changes, let's refresh and navigate to the catalog view in the home screen. Here, I see that my customizations have been enabled. This feature gives admins more control on setting up the user experience while onboarding new users. by enhancing discoverability of recommendations and as well as highlighting important topics.
Hello, my name is Thierry Brunet. I am Product Manager on SAP Analytics Cloud Predictive Planning. Today, I present you a new feature whose objective is to provide you better explanation about your data and particularly when cycles are detected. Let's start with this example about the consumption of electricity in France. We have the daily consumption since 2015. And we want to predict what this consumption will be during the next 30 days. I have built this predictive model, which is rather good regarding the low value of 5.38% of the expected mapping. Effectively, the blue curve of the predictions overlaps the light blue curve of the actuals. At the end, we have the predictive forecast. Now go to the explanation tab. The first graph shows the breakdown of the time series into the detected component. Let's take a look at the cycle curve in orange. This curve is a mix of all detected cycles. Until now, it was not possible to make the distinction between these cycles and know what the influence of each cycle is. The feature I present you today allows this. Below this curve, a table shows the impact of each component of the time series. Here we see that two cycles are detected. A yearly cycle whose impact to the target is at 12.52% and a weekly cycle whose impact is less important at 4%. That's the first point. Now I scroll down, you can discover a new chart. I show the impact of the chosen cycle. For the yearly cycle, the year of the time series are split into periods, and the orange bar shows for all periods how much the predicted value is impacted. We see that the electricity consumption decreased during summer and grow up in winter. If I look at the weekly cycle this time, the periods are the days of the week. We see that during working day, the consumption is greater than in Sunday. Another aspect of this new feature is when Smart Predict detects variation in the amplitude of the cycle. In this example, there is a huge increase of the amplitude of the time series. Smart Predict detects a weekly cycles whose amplitude increase over time. In this case, the impact is displayed for the 3 last occurrences of the cycle. The idea is to show you the most recent changes. Here, for the weekly cycle, we can see the predicted value is impacted for every day for the 3 last weeks. This concludes the demonstration. Thank you very much.
Hi everyone, my name is Tanir Kapil, and I'm a product expert for SAP Analytics Cloud. And we're going to go over a few improvements that we've made with the Q4 QRC. Just note, all of these improvements are exclusive to the optimized design experience. And the improvements that we've delivered are either focused on continuing to close feature gaps with the existing classic design experience or introducing new functionality. The first improvement that we've made is to the horizontal filter bar. A lot of the feedback that we got from customers is that depending on the resolution of your screen, the number of story filters may be different. And as a result of that, it's hard for you as a story viewer to get a holistic view of all the filters that are available. So what you will notice is that based on my current resolution, I can actually see all my story filters. Age is the first story filter and location is the last. However, if I resize my browser, what you will now see that with the Q4 QRC in the optimized design experience, we're no longer providing a left and right arrow. Instead, we've actually combined all the story filters under a new token called See More Filters. I have the ability to expand this token and interact with the additional filters. So what you'll notice is as I continue to resize my browser, we've now recognized that store as a story filter does not have enough room, so we've decided to combine it under the See More Filters. I can expand it, interact with store, and make any additional filter selection that I want directly within a single drop-down menu. This improvement also isn't only available to the story viewer, but it's also available to the story designer. So as I enter edit mode, what you will see is that See More Filters is now combined. If you start opening additional panels, such as the builder panel in this case, and as I open the designer panel, what you will see is that the See More Filters dynamically updates to actually consolidate all of the filters under this single token. So it doesn't matter where you are in your design time process or view time process, you actually have all these views aggregated into a single See More filter. On top of that, what you would have noticed is the next improvement that we've made. That now with the universal account model, we've actually redesigned the way that it comes to actually consuming multiple account hierarchies. So in this case, we've repositioned the area where you can select a multiple account hierarchy. So in this case, it's actually now under the token accounts and measures. And as you switch into a different account hierarchy, we've actually improved our error handling logic and actually providing you as a story designer a bit more context into why you may not see respective data. So in this case, we are in sync. The ghost state indicates that the chart has a measure or an account that does not exist anymore based on the account hierarchy that's selected, and the same information is available to you directly within the builder panel. As I navigate back to, in this case, OpEx, you will see that update. Another improvement that we've made is around our filters. So a lot of feedback that we got is that there needs to be an opportunity for you as a story designer or story viewer to sort members in your input controls. So in this case, I have a page filter. I have a bunch of story filters at the top. And what you will see is that now we have an option to provide an ascending, descending, and a custom order. So in this case, if I hit on descending, you will see that now I have members that start with the value Z going down. If I go ahead and actually decide to sort and do ascending, you will see that now it starts with the numeric values and then goes on to A. If you actually have hierarchical dimensions, we will actually support the sorting of these members. So in this case, what you will see is I have age, I have 19, 20 to 29, 30 to 39. If I go ahead and sort and do a descending sort in this case, my members will update. So now I see 60 plus at the top. As I actually expand a specific node, you will see that we respect the sort as you drill into the hierarchy as well. As mentioned, this is available for story filters, page filters, and we also support it for chart local filters. Just note, for chart local filters, you will not see an option to actually add a custom order. Instead, you will only see ascending, descending default order or any custom sort that was previously created. Another improvement that we've made is around charts. And a lot of the feedback that we got was around the rank and drill capabilities. So what you will notice is that as I actually click on the 3-dot menu, there's this new option called Ungroup Color Axis. So for any existing story that you have, Ungroup Color Axis will not be selected, but for any net new content that you create, Ungroup Color Axis will be the new default. So let's visit what exactly happens with the application today. So in this case, if I want to add a rank, and in this case, I'm going to add a rank on my color dimension, which is career level. So let's go to career level and let's do a top 2. I'm going to hit apply. What I end up getting back is the top 2 career levels per education degree. And while this is correct, and it depends on your use case, there is a desire that sometimes you just want to see the top 2 head counts by career level distributed by education degree. So in this case, when I look at my legend, I only want to see 2 members. So with the Ungroup Color Axis, we will actually do exactly that. If I hover over the info icon, you'll see that we indicate that we will ungroup the color dimension from the axis, apply the rank, and then distribute it based on any dimension that's part of your drill. So I'm going to go ahead and click Ungroup Color Axis, and what you will see is that now, based on my head count, in my company, senior and specialist are the 2 highest headcount categories, and they're broken down per education degree. On top of that, to provide even more flexibility, as I go over education degree and I want to apply separate rank like a top 3 and hit apply, you will see we now also support the ability for you to apply a rank and a sort on multiple dimensions. So in this case, if I go back into my rank category, you will see that I have a top 3 rank applied on education degree, a top 2 rank applied on career level. If I wanted a holistic view of this, I could just hover over the top N options and be provided a consolidated view. The last improvement that I wanted to go over is around our geo-visualizations. So as I open the designer panel, not only do we now support bubble and heat map layer within the optimized design experience, but we've actually redesigned our builder panel for geo-visualizations. So the first thing you'll notice is just a UI improvement. We've improved the selection for our base map layer. But a lot of the improvements that we've actually made comes to when it comes to creating a new layer type. So the first thing you'll notice is that because I have no model selected for this, the entry points to add a location dimension, color, bubble size, filter has been disabled. I have the ability to select a data model. In this case, I will select TCS Technologies HR and go ahead and click on OK. And as we detect that now you have a valid model bound to the visualization, we actually will enable the entry points. You will see we're following a consistent theme with charts where we're combining all the layer types under a single drop-down menu, making it easier for you to find your desired layer type. And on top of that, we've actually made improvements to location clustering. So location clustering is something that is enabled by default, and the purpose of that is to ensure that you as a story viewer aren't taking a performance hit. But there are times where if you have less data points than the default location clustering, which is 5,000 in this scenario, you're actually taking a performance hit. So with the optimized design experience, as soon as you now add a location dimension for the first time, we will automatically detect how many data points you have. And if we detect that you're less than the threshold, we will automatically turn off location clustering. At any point in time, you could re-enable it. We will never prevent you from doing an action, but just note then you will now be provided a warning and a performance optimization tip to indicate that this is something that we advise against. At any point in time, if I go, for example, to 14 data points, you will see that performance optimization tip goes away. But if I increase to something like 20, which is more than the number of data points I have, that performance optimization tip comes back. These are some of the updates that we've made with the optimized design experience. Thank you very much.
In the QRC release 2022.Q4, SAP Analytics Cloud adds 2 new options to its export API. The first is for a delta load, and the second is support for 3-legged OAuth. What the delta load support allows you to do is to pick up changes in the fact data for a particular model. If you use this option, you can pick up changes since your last visit. It's key to the user, so it is very much since your last particular visit. So if you were last logged in yesterday, you'll get the changes for the last day. The second change is added support for 3-legged OAuth instead of only 2-legged as we had before. So what this allows you to do is to have a user log on. So the user, if you trigger the 3-legged OAuth authentication, you will get a pop-up to log in with your Analytics Cloud user, and then your application will be provided with the token for the rest of the session. And this is added there in addition to the already existing 2-legged, which is app key and secret based authentication. Let's go to a quick demo of these 2 things in action. So here we're looking at a fairly simple model with a fact table and some dimensions. Here we are looking at its data management tab with its 2 different data load sources. Now we are in a custom app. The app logs into SAC and we select which provider and which model we want. And then here we're going to invoke the new changes option. This is of course an API. And then we get to see the delta load, the changes since our last visit. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Arno Klein and I'm part of the SAP Analytics Cloud product management team. With the upcoming QRC4 release, we are going to improve the support of two-structure queries by allowing to remove the secondary structure from the access when uniquely filtered. This will provide more flexibility to end users by enabling scenarios like linked analysis. Let's have a look at the system. I'm in the optimized design experience of SAP Analytics Cloud, and my three widgets are connected to two-structure BW query. The dimension input control feeds the chart, and the chart itself has also a member of the secondary structure in the filter. The table is connected via linked analysis to the chart and has the secondary structure in the drill down. As you can see, scenarios like linked analysis are now supported, and I can also remove the secondary structure from the access of the table by setting a unique filter on the structure member of the secondary structure. That's it from my side. Thank you.
In QRC 2022 Q4, SAP Analytics Cloud introduces 4 new formula functions: account lookup, measure lookup, iterate, and prior. And we'll start by having a look at the account lookup and measure lookup functions. These are a pair of functions that are very similar in their use case. And they are when you use them when you want to involve accounts and measures in calculations that are not in the same context. For example, if you have a measure and you want to use it in a calculation on an account against an account value where that account dimension was not in the context when the measure was booked, but you still want to use that account value in a formula, you would use account lookup, and vice versa for measure lookup. The syntax is very simple. It's simply account lookup, and then what the account is and which dimension member key you want to use, or for that matter, the same thing with measure lookup. You would take the account measure and then you would take the measure. Let's look at it in practice. What we have here is we have a table. We have an account, net revenue. We actually have several accounts. And we have a measure that's actually not even shown on this particular table. It's called cost. But cost is not booked against the volume. So what we want to do is we want to calculate the cost per unit. So we know our total costs and we know the volume, but they were booked in different contexts. And we would use the account lookup function. We would use that account lookup function in order to compute the cost per unit using the account lookup. And in that function here, we have account lookup. We take the volume and then we take the particular dimension key for that particular volume. And then we can use that value in expenses over result lookup volume, gives us a cost per unit. And that is how that particular column was calculated. Going back to the slides, the other two new functions are iterate and prior. And iterate and prior you use when you want to do calculations against different dimensions, against different dimension contexts. Again, but we're not reaching across the account measure divide, but rather between dimensions. The classic example is iterating over time. So for example, you want to compute a waterfall effect. So you want to know your starting and your final balance for your revenue in the month. and you want to carry over the previous month's revenue. So let the previous month's final balance is the new starting balance on the new month, and then you have the revenue for the new month, and then you would have the final balance, and then you would carry over to the next month beyond that. And that's where this function comes in, where iterate comes in, because iterate essentially just moves across dimension numbers, dit, 1, 2, 3. Again, the classic dimension number being date, but it doesn't have to be date. And the prior function just simply reaches out and grabs the previous one in the context. Unlike the account measure or the account lookup and measure lookup, this is context-based. It uses its context to orient itself. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Gert Schöffel and I'm a product expert in SAP Analytics Cloud Planning. Today I want to introduce to you the Newline feature in tables based on a BPC Live connection. The Newline feature is working in a similar way as the well-known feature Add Member in SAC Native Planning. The aim is to create one or multiple new lines in an existing table to enter new plan data. Please observe that we can only add new rows but no new columns. The feature is supported when at least one dimension in the rows is in booked mode and when the measures are placed in the columns. If all dimensions are in unbooked mode, then obviously all potential combinations are already created and a new line cannot be created anymore. With the new feature, you cannot create any new members in a BPC Live connection, but only new combinations of existing members. For the prerequisites, please check the subnote 3238379. Let us now have a look at the demo in the system. As you can see here, we have a story with a table with a BPC Live connection. As you can see, we have some countries and some product groups and some combinations. Now let's assume you want to book a new combination for a country that's not yet available. Just call the context menu on the country and click Add Member. Now by double-clicking to the cell, you can use the value help and you will see all countries which are available within the filter of the query. Let's choose Canada. Let's click OK. And now let's enter some product group. Instead of using the value help, you can also directly type in the product group. As you can see, water is accepted, and if the combination is correct, then the line turns input enabled, and now you can start and enter some data into the different columns. Now let us assume you want to create a new combination for a country that's already existing. Then you just have to click on the product group, call the Add Member on the product group, and enter the new product group. And again, if the combination is correct, you can start your planning. If you enter a combination that's already available, let's go here, let's enter water, then the system will give you an arrow and will not allow you to create this combination because this combination between Canada and water is already existing. So this is what I wanted to show you today. Thank you very much.
We can now add comments within the story based on calculated accounts and calculated measures, and this includes measures that include currency variables. Note that the comments are not going to reflect any changes that may occur within the calculation of either the account or the measure. So let's take a look. So to illustrate this, we're going to look at our account dimension within our model. And you can see we've entered a simple KPI where we're looking at sales as it relates to operating income. So simply sales divided by operating income is our calculated account, and then we're going to be entering a comment based on a measure that we've created for our model, and then we're going to be extending the same scenario where we're going to be looking at calculated measures as well. So to do that, we're going to use the CC measure, which is going to be our calculated measure, which is simply going to be a mirror of our value that we've entered in our TC measure. In addition, we also have a currency measure that we'll be adding as well as a variable called VC for variable currency, where we've added a currency variable to our model, and we can see how that'll affect our commenting as well. So notice that the commenting, when we do show this in the story, is all going to be based on the underlying object. So any changes in either the account formula or the measure calculations are not going to be taken into effect for this calculations, as well as the particular currency that the value may be entered. So here you can see we're now entering values against our calculated measure as well as our sales and operating income, which is a calculated account. And we're just going to enter some simple comments here as well. And this is for our currency measure for US dollars. And then we'll, after we've completed entering in this comment, we'll also enter in a comment for our measure that contains the currency variable. And this is going to be the last measure that we're going to be entering a comment against. And just note that for this, I'm just showing that we are entering the value for, in this case, US dollars. This currency variable had already been filled in when I had opened up the report. So please take a look at how easy it is to create comments against calculated accounts as well as measures. Thank you.
Okay, one of the important new features we have as part of our Q4 2022 QRC release is this new RESTful API step that's available within multi-actions. So this allows you to call external calculations via REST API from within your multi-action. You could do that against, say, another SAP system or non-SAP target system. And of course, you can chain that in conjunction with other multi-action steps such as data actions, data imports, or predictive forecasts. And so this allows more complex workflows, end-to-end workflows and automation, where you might run, for example, a multi-action with a first step that executes a data action. Then you could push that data via our external API, pull API to a target system, run a calculation in that target system, and then re-import the data if you needed to back into SAP Analytics Cloud. You could do that all in a single multi-action. So let's take a look at this in action. Okay, now in terms of the API, the first thing I'd like to note is that if you look at the toolbar, you'll see we have a new step type you can insert to add the API step. Now, in this particular multi-action, we have 3 steps. The first is the publish data changes. The last will be to re-import data from, in this case, PAPM. And the central step in this multi-action is the PAPM calculation. This is in fact 2 steps. It does a data export using our API, and then it calls a calculation within PAPM itself to do the allocation. Now, a couple things about the API. You'll obviously add a step name. You'll add the HTTP connection. We'll talk about that in a sec. And then you'll need to add the API URL. Those are things that at minimum you need to include. And then of course you can include some additional body information to pass to the URL or the API if you need to. Now, something important to note about the API is that for it to work, you have to create a separate connection. That connection type needs to be of HTTP API connection type. You'll see that that is listed as the last connection type if you were to add a new data source. So you need to set this up before you use this in a given multi-action step for the API. So just jumping over to our story. Of course, we're going to publish our data, trigger the PAPM calculation, and import the PAPM result. That's what the multi-action is going to do. I have 2 tables here. The first table above is to import data. If I want to make a change to that, changes to 1.2 million. Right. The second table is going to consume the results of the API when I execute it. Right. So I'm going to run the multi-action. When I do that again, I'll speed this up slightly, but the multi-action is going to publish the data, export the result, process the calculation in PAPM, and then re-import the resulting numbers into SAP Analytics Cloud. So that process is complete. If I click refresh here, you'll see now that my allocation result for this calculation is 120. So again, this is the RESTful API step available from within multi-actions with our Q4 2022 release. Okay, the next thing we want to cover is some changes we're making to data locking with the Q4 release. And this pertains specifically to the ability now for derived calculated members to respect the underlying lock status of their source members. So if you have a story-based cross-calculation or restricted measure, a model-based restricted or lookup formula in either the accounts or measures, or a conversion measure in your new model, those will now respect the underlying lock status of their source members, and they will then become locked themselves if the source member is locked. Now just note that this is restricted to sort of first level derivation. So in other words, don't expect that a calculated member off a calculated member that's off a input member that is locked is going to work, right? So only first level calculations will be respected. Okay, so with that, let's jump over and see some of these changes in action. Okay, in my story, you'll see I have 3 measures. One is an input measure, the other is a restricted measure based in the story, and the third is my conversion measure to USD. The derived measures, of course, are based on this input measure. If I make a change to the input measure, then as expected, the restricted measure and the conversion measure are updated. And because the conversion measure is also a real-time calculation and inverse formula of sorts, if I make a change there, my input plan member is updated. Just to quickly take a look here at the restricted measure. The restricted measure is, just to show you, is looking at the input measure and the version as planned, which is what's being displayed in this table currently. So I'm going to go ahead and publish the data here. And now what I'm going to do is off screen, I'm going to change the lock status for the input member. Now, within the data locking, I don't get the ability to change the lock status of the calculated members directly. I change the status of the lock status of the source member. And when I refresh my table here, you'll see that the derived members are also locked in addition to the base member being locked, right? So now I cannot enter data in any of these members. And an important thing to note is that this isn't restricted to me having to display the original base member, so I can remove the input member, and those derived members still appear and they still are locked as expected. Okay, so this is the changes to the data locking for calculated members available with the Q4 2022 QRC release.
Now we're going to take a look at our dimension comment support. So just a few things before we take a look at our demo. The first thing is that you can now create comments based on the dimension values for 2 or more members, and that can get added directly into a table. So this is going to be a single comment that you get to add into the table, and it can also be based on the version if you'd like it to be. And we're also going to allow you to copy and paste to create these comments, as well as the ability to delete comments as well within the commenting column. So let's take a look at an example. So here we're looking at a report that we see the entity and the account have been added into the table. So we're going to add our dimension comment. If we look at the formula bar, we're going to be able to see the dimensions that are included in this comment as well. So here you can see that you have the ability to enter a comment on the entity as well as account. So this is not based on the transactional data, but on the dimensional combinations here. So now we're going to enter in a comment. In this case, this comment is going to be at the gross profit level for our best bikes entity, and we can just see a simple comment here. The other thing is that because the dimension comment is based on these dimensions, we can also add an additional dimensions in the report as well, and you can see that cascaded. So the first thing we're going to do is kind of clean up this report just to show the titles to make it a little bit cleaner and easy to visualize. Once we do this, you can see their dimension comment being added. As we expand the totals, you'll see that same comment being added to all the lines of our product dimension. So that concludes our demo. on dimension comments. Thank you.
With this release, we're introducing a new bulk editing capability for calendar tasks and processes. Of course, up until this point, if you wanted to create a large process hierarchy, you had the ability to do that using the task wizard. But what wasn't easy was to retroactively make changes to a whole bunch of tasks. So in other words, if you use that task wizard, created a process hierarchy, and then realized you had made a mistake, let's say with the work file that was associated with that, or you didn't add it before you created the task hierarchy, it was hard to retroactively fit that back in, and you might have to recreate the entire process hierarchy. But with this new bulk editing capability, you can now select a series of individual tasks, and you can make mass changes to those tasks. So that can include changing general information like the name or description, substituting things like work files, changing time parameters like start and due date, or let's say substituting or finding given assignees and substituting new assignees. Okay, so with that, let's jump over and see this bulk editing capability in action. So here you'll see I have a process hierarchy, just a couple of individual tasks that roll up to a parent process. If I just sort of look at the details of this individual composite task, we'll see that I currently have an assignee for my Bicycletus americanus. Tim Chestnut's the assignee. And note that when I have one individual member selected here, this new toolbar bulk edit capability is grayed out. And I would still make the changes I wanted on the detail pane. Now, just before I proceed, you'll see that for my Best Bikes Inc., I have Louis Pyre to the assignee. And what I'm going to do is now change the assignees for these two tasks. So if I select more than one task, my bulk edit becomes available. I can use the UI navigation to navigate between the edit options. In this case, I'm going to change the assignee and the due date. We'll set the due date for these tasks a little over a week out to October the 12th. And what we're going to do is we have two individual assignees for the respective tasks. We're going to replace the assignees. And we'll replace the assignees with, let's say, Lester. Select Lester. When we click Next or Step 4, we'll get a preview before we make the final submission. And when I click the Edit, it will do a mass edit of these tasks, and I'll get a notification once that's complete. So now we've got the notification that the request has been complete. We do a refresh, and we just pull up one of these tasks. Best Bikes Inc. first. We'll see that, yes, in fact, the due date is now October the 12th. And of course, the assignee is now Lester. And likewise, if I look at Bicycletus americanus, I have a due date of October the 12th, and Lester is the assignee. So again, this is the bulk edit capability available within the calendar with the Q4 2022 QRC release. Hi, my name's Scott Godfrey, and I'm one of the product managers with SAP Analytics Cloud. I'm going to spend the next few moments talking to you about some of the new features we have coming in the planning area as part of our Q4 2022 QRC release. And we're going to start with the integration of list and Gantt views in the calendar. So we're getting rid of the dedicated Gantt view, and we're incorporating that into the list view now. So if you pull up a list view, you'll have a toggle in the toolbar to enable the Gantt view in conjunction with the list view. You can toggle that on or off. If you toggle it on, you'll get a split screen that will show the list view on the left, the Gantt view on the right. You have the ability to resize the window to balance the display of the list versus the Gantt view. Of course, individual line items are lined up between the two views. You can zoom distinctly within the Gantt view based on the filter time defined in the list view. And of course, any changes you make in either the list view or the Gantt view are immediately reflected in the other view. So by harmonizing the list and the Gantt view in a single tab, we make overall plan process tracking easier. So with that, let's jump over and see this in action. Okay, so if we look at the calendar now, you'll see that we have two tabs instead of three. We have the list view and the calendar view. If I had the list view enabled, I now have this new toggle for the Gantt view. I can enable that. Then I get a split screen between the list and the Gantt view. Of course, I have the ability to resize the weighting of the list view on the left and the Gantt view on the right by dragging and dropping. I'll have a filtered period on the left in the list view, which is a month in this case. But when I do that, within the context of that, on the Gantt view, I have the ability to zoom in on specific dates right down to time. Right? And of course, if I change that that filter in the list view, then the zoom scope for the Gantt view also changes. The other thing is that you'll see that at any point in time you can pull up the Gantt legend, the chart legend, that will give you information about the statuses of the individual items. Another exciting feature we have coming this quarter is the ability to auto-generate and drill into VDT subtrees. Now previously you could automatically create a VDT based on an account dimension or measure dimension depending on your model configuration. But with this new capability, you have the ability to automatically drill into and create a series of branches based on other dimensions. And you can do that at any level of an existing VDT. Now this does work in both view and edit mode, but I think it's particularly beneficial during the creation process of the VDT, where you want to extend a node you might have created very seamlessly by drilling and pivoting based on another dimension. So let's jump over and see this in action. So if we take a look at this simple VDT, we'll see we have 3 nodes. These are based primarily on the account dimension, gross margin, net revenue, and cost of goods sold. And now we have, if I right click on any node, I have this drill into capability, and you'll see that it lists other dimensions in my model. So in my case, I'm going to select the region dimension, and I'm going to select the children of the global hierarchy. And what then happens is I get a new set of nodes inserted between gross margin and the net revenue and cost of goods sold that delineate the various regions, right? So United States gross margin, Asia Pacific gross margin, and Europe gross margin in this specific example. Now what's important to note is that I have the ability to do this anywhere in my VDT. So if I want to extend the VDT further down, say in the United States for my net revenue, and I want to extend that by product, I could select a series of product families. If I click OK, those nodes are then auto-generated. And of course, I have the ability to pull up the designer. I'll see all these nodes created, and I can further customize them if I need to in the designer. So again, this is the auto-generation and drill into VDT subtree feature.
Hi, I'm Jeanne Bigonnet, a product manager with SAP Analytics Cloud. Today, I want to introduce you to the new feature for Microsoft Excel integration. First, we have now released a new live connectivity with S/4HANA Cloud data source. Then, S/4HANA Cloud customers can create analytics in Excel with the prerequisite to have declared the S/4HANA Cloud system as a live source in SAP Analytics Cloud. Next, we have delivered the option to disable planning capabilities in Excel. The option is defined for a specific SAP Analytics Cloud planning model in Excel. By default, the model is, of course, planning enabled. But when the option is unchecked, it is then not possible anymore to plan or write back data. We also support different data access languages, which is based on the user preference settings defined in the web. Then, all the settings are valid for both Story and Workbook in Excel.
We also introduced the customized order capability. With this, we improve flexibility in visualizing grids in Excel by customizing measure or dimension ordering according to business need. This is defined on the member selector and supported by any dimension, including version. Last, we have introduced a very important feature named SAP Get Data Formula. This formula is an Excel-like function which returns and displays data based on dimension members combination defined in its parameters. Using this formula, it is then possible to build asymmetric reporting in Excel as desired.
Let's see a demonstration of the Get Data formula directly in the product. In this example, we are using a SAP Get Data formula to create a report from scratch. Of course, we could add a SAP Get Data formula beside an existing add-in table. Here, I'm just entering the SAP data formula and specifying, of course, the parameters. The parameters are based on the data source, the dimension we want to retrieve in the report, and the IDs of the member of the dimension we want to display. As soon as the formula is created, I can use a copy-paste function. I can, of course, spread the formula belong a row or a column as any standard function. Then, beside the formula, I can add any standard Excel function. In this example, I have added a variance or a difference. And of course, I can also apply a specific format based on the Excel standard format. Here, I'm just adding a conditional formatting to have a specific color coding. And I will also change the display of the table to make it nicer. But of course, this is open for creativity. I hope you will try the functions and you will enjoy it. Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Hopefully our demos have helped you leverage the latest features in SAP Analytics Cloud in your organization. Remember to leave a like on this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel to stay up to date with everything Analytics Cloud. We are excited for what's to come in 2023, so stay tuned and we'll see you next time.